रुपया चाहिए ना तो ये लीजिए। सुना है इंसान पहले बंदर था, लेकिन पैसे की लालच ने उसे कुत्ता बना दिया।
Hello, welcome to episode 2 of Parde Ke Piche with me, Ankur Desai, and
Raeesa Farooqi.
This podcast is dedicated to discussing, analyzing Indian cinema through a critical lens.
Mm-hmm.
And today's episode is a part of a 3-part series on the transition from Hindi cinema to Bollywood.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think in our last episode we talked about how Indian cinema has many different types of cinema. This 3-part series we're specifically looking at Hindi cinema, which is I suppose like the Bombay based cinema, and how that transitioned into Bollywood, because I think we both agree they're not really the same thing. Yeah, so you want to talk about what this first episode is looking at, Ankur?
So we decided to split the series, I guess, into 3 parts, and we're going to be looking at films from a specific time frame. And in each episode, we're going to be analyzing those movies and seeing how they changed or how much they influenced modern Bollywood or modern Hindi cinema, I guess. So for episode 1, we decided to look at 2 films from the 50s that we think are considered to be like the greats of Bollywood, and we think are a great like starting point.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's another thing, like greats of Hindi cinema, and this era itself is known as the golden age of Hindi cinema, of Bollywood. So it was from like the late 40s to the 60s, and the 2 films we picked are actually in the 50s, so the good medium. But I guess
so. Raeesa is gonna start us off with talking about her film, which is Shree Charsobis. Right?
Yeah, Shree Charsobis. But I actually wanted to talk about the sort of give like a historical context.
Sure. Yes.
Of the time period. So.
And after she's done with hers, I'll be talking about the great film Mother India.
Mm-hmm, so. So great landmark films.
Yeah.
So let's paint a picture of the late 40s to the 60s. What was happening in India? India had just become, had just got their independence. So it was a new country, really trying to figure out what it was, its identity. So the first prime minister was Nehru. He was a socialist. So socialism really gained popularity in India at the time. There was, it was shaped by like the Soviet model of centralized and integrated national economic programs. And there was also nationalization of heavy industries like steel and mining, electricity. So that resulted in very rapid industrialization in India at the time. At the same time, there was the partition in 1947, which resulted in Pakistan being created in India. It was very violent, as we all know, and a lot of hostility, which I think still exists to this day, as we actually see in the very recent news. So essentially, India was a place full of contradictions. There was rapid industrialization, but there was also the rural kind of poor people trying to figure out where they stood in all of this. The economy was booming, so there was also a split between rich people and the poor, the urban people, if you will. And then there was a split between ethnic groups as well with the partition. So where did India stand really? And just trying to figure itself out. And I read a good quote in this academic journal called Houseful: The Golden Age of Indian Cinema by Zia Salam. And she said, at the time period, Hindi cinema often did what was principally the job of media: mold public opinion, highlight the challenges faced by an emerging nation, not with the idea that of killing an innocent dream, but merely to ensure that none were left out of the march of progress. So that was really what Hindi cinema was like at the time. And that's why we wanted to look at two sort of landmark films of the time period to explore those themes that they were, highlighting at the time. And I think show the difference between what this age of cinema was like versus what the next two episodes will be about, and how that sort of shifted to what you think is like a typical Bollywood film now.
Yeah.
All right, so the first film we're going to talk about is Shree Charsobis. It was a 1955 film by Raj Kapoor. If you guys listened to our first episode, you'll know that Raj Kapoor was one of the sons of Prithvi Raj Kapoor, again, co-founder of Ep2, which is the cultural wing of the Communist Party. Raj Kapoor was, I think everyone knows Raj Kapoor and his contribution to Hindi cinema, so he definitely did not stay in the shadows of his dad's work. So the film he made was a story of this Charlie Chaplin tramp, small town guy who wants to make it big in the city. So the film starts off with him walking to the city, singing a song, a very famous song, Mera Juta Hai Japani, which is My Shoes Are Japanese. And Ankur, I think you know the rest of the lyrics.
So yeah, it's like Mera Juta Hai Japani, Ye Patloon Englishstani, Sar pe Lal Topi Rosi, Fir Bhi Dil Hai Hindustani. Which translates to like, my shoes are Japanese, my pants are from Britain, the hat on my head is from Russia, but my heart's always Indian.
Yeah, and those lyrics of those songs, I think, encompass the sort of main sentiments at the time in India, because this was post-independence. Only because independence was 1947 and this was 1955, so only a few years after. So that was sort of India in a nutshell at the time, trying to figure out its identity now that there were no Brits watching over them. And that song, I really think, really speaks to it, that, my shoes are Japanese, British pants on, I have all these things from all over, but inside I'm still Indian. And the question was, what does it mean to be Indian? And I think Shree Charsobis really goes into exploring that. So 420 relates to section 420 of the Indian Penal Code, where crimes of theft and deception are punished. And this is exactly what happens to Raj Kapoor's character in the film. So, small town guy, he's very honest. He actually, in the film, he has a medal for his honesty, which is hilarious. He like holds this little medal and he's so proud of it. But he comes to the big city where people are not honest whatsoever.
They don't have medals for honesty.
They do not walk around with medals for honesty. And this poor guy, he's walking down the street and he goes to like a, what do you call them? Pawn shop. And he needs money because he's poor, so he actually gives the guy his medal because it's made out of silver or something. And it's basically he's giving up his honesty to get money, and that's when it all starts. So I think you can, if you haven't seen the movie, I think it's kind of obvious though what happens to Mr. Raj Kapoor. So he realizes life in the city is not as hyped up as it could be, and the issue comes with him. The struggle comes with him, whether to stay honest and true to himself or whether to, go into all this corruption.
Yeah.
But that would mean living a life of luxury. And so, while he's doing this, he meets a woman, a school teacher, Vidya, played by Nargis, who, I guess, sweeps him off his feet. Falls up. Of course, you need a romantic lead. And Nargis actually is in Mother India, which Ankur will talk about later. Her character name is interesting. So Vidya means knowledge, and obviously Raj Kapoor ends up with her at the very end. So where what happens, but it's not to say that he wasn't faced with struggles during the film. That's what makes it interesting. So while he's trying to stay true to himself and to be honest, he meets the bad guy. I don't want to give too much away, but essentially he gets swayed in by the corruption, starts making a lot of money. He meets a femme fatale. Her name is Maya. I can't remember who plays her, but she has the most fantastic expressions. She can use her eyebrows, and it's just obviously you can't see what I'm doing right now, but it's
Raisa's eyebrows.
Yeah, just my eyebrows are going up and down. But I don't know who plays her, but she's fantastic, and I want to watch all her stuff because I've never seen someone so expressive with eyebrows before. Anyways, her character's name is Maya, which means illusion.
Yeah.
And it's essentially Raj Kapoor falls for the illusion of a life of luxury. But it means giving up all your values. And I think I'll even make a stretch and say the Indian values of truth and honesty. And I think really at the end of the day, that is what the film is really about, is the struggle with identity of, grappling with whether India should stay, true to its values and honesty, or should it go towards, the riches and dishonesty of the West, which directly ties into the historical context of the time. There's this rapid industrialization, booming economy, and yet you have all these poor people still there, and this very big split between the rich and the poor. The film, it's so entertaining, and I think it's easy to miss too, what kind of the bigger themes are, but it's fantastic. And I think Raj Kapoor is really great at bringing these moral, social themes into a very entertaining way for the masses, and I think that's why it was the highest grossing film of 1955. It had some big box office records that I did not bother looking up, but I know that Mother India actually beat that record. So it's pretty big. I don't know what else I can say about the film. There was, and we spoke a little bit about this earlier, just between us, Ankur and I, but there is what I noticed. There was a lot of references to Italian neorealism. For example, bicycle thieves, and I don't really know my Italian neorealism too much, but who made bicycle thieves?
Vittorio De Sica. Yeah.
Sure. That guy. Anyways, I saw it in film studies, but I don't remember much about it. I didn't like it. I'm sorry.
Oh,
but anyways, there is a part in Bicycle Thieves where so it's basically Bicycle Thieves is about it's like a day, right? And this guy steals a bike for takes a bike.
His bike gets stolen. And he's trying to find it.
Right. Yeah, he's trying to find the bike. and then there's he like sits down at one point. He like sits down.
Sits down with his son, like at the end of the movie. At
the end of the movie, and it's a really like very like everyone who's seen I guess Bicycle Thieves knows this shot or pays attention in Italian neorealism class. Knows this shot, but that same shot is actually in this film. So Raj Kapoor character walks into the busy street, and there's this Coca-Cola sign, very consumerist, buy Coca-Cola, and it's contrasted by this busy street full of poor people and homeless people just sitting on the sidewalk. And Raj Kapoor, I was gonna say Charlie Chaplin, but Raj Kapoor's character just walks in, and then he sits down, and you're seeing all this, and then a little kid comes and sits next to him, and it's like shot for shot, like it's like the exact same shot, and like the themes, obviously they're very similar. I don't know much of my Italian neorealism to really speak to it more, but that was cool. So I think Raj Kapoor in general, he saw that there was this like new middle and lower class audience that was emerging, and he sort of like tried to make Indian cinema accessible for everyone, and make it more impactful for everybody. So in all his films, and not just this one, but there's also Avada, which is really good and also follows that tramp kind of guy. He always gave a platform to the poor people, which is exactly what this film is. And I really so he says his line at the very end, and in English the translation is humans were monkeys, but money made them into dogs.
Ooh.
Which was like, so badass. But I mean, if you didn't think he was a socialist, then now you know for sure. It's a great film, and really brings out a lot of the themes that were prevalent in that time period. So I had a lot of fun looking at this one.
I guess it's my turn to talk about another landmark film in Hindi cinema, and that is Mehboob Khan's Mother India. And there's, again, like Shri 400 Piece, there's a lot of like, it was a story that was made to kind of raise the national identity of India, because again, the movie was released in 1957, almost 10 years after India finally got independence from the British Raj. So it tells a story of a poor farmer, a woman poor farmer who is trying to struggle and toiling away to pay off her debt to a village moneylender. And it also just showcases her life throughout, being a newlywed wife, a mother, a wife who gets abandoned and has to raise her children by herself. And it just showcases how through all of the struggle she goes through, she still like preserves her dignity and her morality. And that was sort of to like indicate like India can survive and succeed after all of this.
Which I think is the same as the like Raj Kapoor's film, because he's also like holds on to his values at the very end.
There's like a lot of that in modern films too. Like a lot of, they go through like the ringer, and the characters still like preserve like honor and duty, and that's what like guides them through the movie. So definitely. So it's Mother India's legacy as a groundbreaking film is not only felt in India but all throughout the world, it's considered one of the best of Indian cinema and world cinema.
Was it nominated for an Oscar?
Yeah, it
at the
was.
time?
It was
okay.
nominated. It was like it was the first film sent by India to the Academy Awards, and it was one of the 5 that were selected that year. It was beat out by Fellini's Night at the Cabaria. Is that how you say it?
Cabaria.
Yeah,
I don't know, man. I
Cabaret.
will be honest. I'm not a big fan of like Italian realism, especially as I'm talking about it. I don't really like. So, I'm sorry if Kevin Dong is listening to this. I'm sorry, Kev.
But yeah, it's appeared on lists from Empire magazine, Time magazine. It's also showed up in the book 1,000 Movies You Must See Before You Die, and it's also shown up on the British Film Institute's poll of the best Indian films. So its legacy is held in high regard in India, obviously, but also outside of India, it's clearly seen as one of the best films. One of the best quotes I found was from Richard Corliss, the film critic, for Time magazine. He writes, Mother India is a left-wing Gone with the Wind, but grittier and more volcanic, and has better songs too. Which, yeah. I mean, I've seen parts of Gone with the Wind, and I'm like, yeah, it's more left-wing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and again, sorry to harp on this, but it's even in India, it's considered one of the best films. Film critics like Anupama Chopra and Rajiv Masand, who are the prominent film critics, they praise the film as a highlight of Hindi cinema. Also, in 2004, the film premiered in the Cannes Classics section of the film festival that year. So, again, great film, revered by many. Even filmmakers in India love this film. Shyam Benegal, considered one of the best filmmakers from the 70s, kind of was part of the middle cinema. He said this about the film: Mother India was probably the most important Indian film ever made. I don't believe any other film has that kind of impact on filmmaking in popular Indian cinema. The structure of the film and the story of the film. It is Nehruvian, by the important thing there is that it caught the imagination of the Indian people in a fashion that you can only attribute to great epics. And, you can clearly debate him about which is the most important film ever made, but his thoughts on the structure of the film and the story and its importance to Nehruvian politics and economics, that rings through, because when you watch the film, it's so much, you start seeing the parallels in modern day films, especially the role of the mother. So it's there, and he is completely right. So yeah, to kind of go on about the film, starting with the production. All right, so the title of Mother India actually comes from a polemic book by Catherine Mayo.
Okay. I thought that was the case.
Yeah. So yeah, her book. So Catherine Mayo was a historian, researcher, and all-around scumbag. So the book was written and released in 1927 and was sort of meant, and its purpose was to justify British India rule, British Raj, and because during the 1920s and all throughout British Raj, there was always a struggle for independence. So the book basically was there to kind of say, no, India shouldn't get any independence. And she wrote it as her big problem was that if India gets independence, a lot of the lower caste people and women will be mistreated. And you can say that, there is some merit to like how Indian women are treated and how lower caste people are treated, but the way this book was written was to justify colonial rule. And yes, we are in
Yeah.
the 21st century, but at the same time, the British Raj was pretty much the shittiest thing.
Yeah. No, yeah, it
So
was basically saying like, oh, Indians, they're savages. They
yeah,
need the
exactly.
white person,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
white rule to
exactly, pretty
watch
much.
over them, and
Yeah.
yeah.
And this is like this wasn't something new for Catherine Mayer. She had written about like the Filipino independence movement, like the Philippines independence movement from
Mm,
American rule. She wrote against that. She was also against like Catholic immigration to America. She was also anti-black, anti-labor rights. So yeah, all around scumbag, and
mm,
it's kind of hard to take her seriously now and even in the past. So when the book was released, um, Mahatma Gandhi, who wrote this, it says the book is a report of a drain inspector sent out with the one purpose of opening and examining the drains of the country to be reported upon, or to tie a graphic description of the stench exuded by the open drains. So basically, like, no, like
mm.
it was meant to just justify ugliness for the sake of the betterment of India itself. As sort of a reaction to this book and sort of idea of Mother India, Mehboob Khan decided to just name a film after it, and and he didn't have a story to it so far or what the movie was about. Um, but he just had this idea that I should call a movie called Mother India. It was meant to showcase the beauty, endurance, and strength of India rather than like the bad aspects of it and kind of the bad aspects defining it.
Mm-hmm.
So Mehboob Khan's film is actually a remake of his earlier film called Aurat, and it tells the exact same story. Production of the film began in 1955, and an interesting aspect of this was that the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting, when they found out about the script and that there was a movie going to be called Mother India, they were really like a surprise and be like hesitant to like have a movie called Mother India
Mm.
because of what the book was. And so the filmmaker sent the script to the ministry along with the letter. It was like a 2-page letter, and one of the sections said, there has been considerable confusion and misunderstanding in regard to our film production, Mother India, and Mayo's book. Not only are the two incompatible, but totally different and indeed opposite. We have intentionally called our film Mother India as a challenge to this book in an attempt to evict from the minds of the opposed of the scurrilous work that is Miss Mayo's book. So again,
Mm.
just meant to highlight what's great about India and kind of, I guess you could say, co-opting the word or reclaiming that title, Mother India.
Mm.
So yeah, and I guess he would be successful because not a lot of people who have watched the movie probably know that Catherine Mayer wrote a book.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
exactly. Yeah.
so
Yeah, I didn't
yeah.
realize that was actually supposed to be a chat. I thought it was just like a coincidence they
Oh
were both named
no,
Mother India.
it was
But
yeah,
very interesting.
yeah.
Okay.
Have you read that book?
I've heard of the
Oh,
book.
heard the
I've
book?
not read
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I've definitely heard of it, but
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah. So again, the movie started production in 1955 with a budget of 20 to 25 lakhs, which
Mm.
was then 420 to 525,000 US dollars. However, by the end of the filming, the budget reached 35 to 40 lakhs. It was mostly due to like reshoots and like the salary of all the actors.
Mm.
Several of the indoor scenes were shot in Mehboob Studios, which was founded and owned by the director Mehboob Khan,
Yeah.
located in Bandra, Mumbai, while outdoor scenes were shot in various villages in Gujarat and Maharashtra, which was then like the Bombay state. and certain villages in Uttar Pradesh. So,
Now, Brother India, was this the one where Nargis was caught in the fire?
yeah,
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 and then
that's
Sunil Dutt.
yeah. So yeah, that's correct. Nargis was so there's a scene where in a field where the I guess like the harvest gets caught on fire, and so while they were shooting the scene, it was supposed to be a contained fire, and I guess some of it got out and like burnt out way too much, and to kind of protect, she couldn't like escape it, so Guru, sorry, not Guru Dutt,
Sunil.
Sunil Dutt leapt into the fire and actually saved Nargis. And the funny thing about that is that Sunil Dutt in the movie plays Nargis's son, and after this happened, they started dating and like fell in love with each other. So if you have like any edible like readings of the film, you can like start like making like really good points
Yeah.
because yeah, it's all there. So yeah, so the film was released on 25th October 1957, and it was a critical and commercial success right off the bat. Baburao Patel, writing for Film India, described Mother India as the greatest picture ever produced in India, and praised Nargis's performance as Radha.
She's such a like
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah,
I don't know, like very restrained, but so
Yeah.
emotional too. Just in
I
her,
know.
just in her face.
Yeah, I was
it's-
noticing that too.
yeah.
Like she does a lot with very little with
Yeah.
her face and
Yeah.
stuff, and it's like, yeah, she's really beautiful, obviously,
Yeah.
and yeah, she can just, yeah, it's hypnotizing.
Mhm.
The film had its premiere at Liberty Cinema in Mumbai, and this was during Diwali and ran almost for a year. It was released in Delhi a week later, and by the end of November had reached every other region of India. So there were a few like special screenings held for like politicians and like business people, I guess. And one of the special screening was held in the Rashtrapati Bhavan in New Delhi, which is the residence of the President of India. That attendance was attended by Jawaharlal Nehru and his daughter Indira Gandhi and Rajendra Prasad, who was the then President of India. Another interesting screening took place in Bombay, obviously the one that happened in Liberty Cinema. Morarji Desai, who was the chief minister of the Bombay state, granted the film an exemption from the entertainment tax after he saw the film and said it was like, it had like a pro-India nationalistic message. So in terms of box office too, it collected quite a bit of money. By the end of its run, 4 crore Indian rupees, which adjusted to inflation in 2014 goes to 134.54 crores. And I can't really do the math.
Yeah.
Because it was like in 2008, I believe, this last number. So it's hard to tell. Also, the film was a success, I guess. It had variable success internationally. In Greece, Spain, and Russia, the film was very much a success, and it's very obvious why it would be a success in Soviet Republic, and even in the Eastern Bloc as well.
Yeah.
Same went for Latin American countries like Peru, Ecuador, and Bolivia. It also did minimal business in France. However, it was very like popular in the French colonies. Whereas in the UK it was a commercial failure, and in the United States it was had a lukewarm response. Kind of like a interesting aspect of the United States release. So the movie runs for about 2 hours and 50-ish minutes, and the one that was shown in United States was only 2 hours. So that's quite a bit of like movie taken out.
Yeah. Did they cut out like songs or?
They took out like songs. I'm guessing it would be songs because there's like 7 songs in the film.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and I think oh no, there's actually 12. Sorry, my bad. So quite a lot of songs, and yeah, an interesting aspect of that was like one of the funniest stories about this Mother India's like reception overseas. When the film was submitted to the Oscars, the film did not have Mehboob Khan Productions logo on it because it featured a hammer and sickle. So
was that actually because he like Mehboob Khan was into communism, or
Yeah.
is just that it
No,
was just a hammer and sickle?
he was a socialist. He was considered a socialist filmmaker.
Okay.
So it was clearly like
Yeah.
meant to use as. It's not like the one that's on like the Soviet Republic flag or the one that's usually associated with communism.
Sure.
But it's a version of it, and it's hard to
Yeah.
like.
So,
And-
well, especially with Mother
Yeah.
India, there's so much imagery there that
Oh,
is
yeah.
like straight from
Yeah.
like the propaganda posters. So
Yeah.
I don't think that's a far stretch at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
Like again, the film did not win at the Oscars that year. It was beat out by Fellini's Knights of the Cabiria.
Mhm.
Whereas in India, it won 4 awards at the 1958 Filmfare Awards, which is the equivalent of Indian Oscars.
Ugh.
Kind
Is
of,
it?
not really.
Is it really,
Not
Ankur?
Aye.
What is it now? Just Shah Rukh Khan every
yeah,
year
pretty much.
showing up.
Yeah. Fanfare.
Fanfare, yeah.
Yeah, so it won like Best Picture, Best Director, Actress, and Cinematography awards. It also won 2 awards at the 5th National Film Awards, which is considered one of the most prestigious awards in India. It won the All India Certificate of Merit for Best Feature Film and the All India Certificate of Merit for Best Feature Film in Hindi.
They give certificates?
Yeah, they give like certificates.
I'm just trying to imagine like Mehboob Khan just holding up a certificate.
I think they get a little bit of money too. Maybe that was
that's
just
very
brought
good.
in.
Yeah,
later.
I mean they are very prestigious awards
Yeah.
in India. Yeah.
And yeah, these. I guess the National Film Awards would be like more the Oscars in terms of like worth.
Sure.
say,
Yeah.
right? But
No, they say like all the artsy films
exactly,
go to those awards. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you're a serious artist if you're
Exactly.
there.
Yeah.
So whatever that means.
Yeah. Nargis also won a Best Actress award at the Karlovy Vary International Film Festival. So yeah, it was like a huge success in India and internationally. You could say it was pretty big in like countries that where I guess you could say socialist or anti-colonial like field sentiments are held. So
yeah.
So I guess like discussing the film, like the big thing is that it's an allegory about India post-colonial independence, and there's a lot of like socialist imagery, and something that you brought up is that there are a lot of shots in the film where the actors are looking towards the horizon, and it's clearly like you can just even if you have like the most minimal knowledge of like Soviet era like propaganda posters, you can clearly see the resemblance because in those propaganda posters they have like workers and farmers looking off into the horizon, and like the parallels are like so obvious. I remember watching the film and just thinking, why does that look familiar to me? And I went, oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
There are also like flourishes of Soviet filmmaking in there. The one that stands out to me is Shamu, who plays played by Raj Kumar.
Was that her husband in the film?
Shamu is Nargis's character's husband in the film. His hands are crushed by a boulder that they're trying to move on their farm, and this like right after that, there's like this rapid editing of Nargis's character like freaking out and like trying to call for help, and there's like just these really really fast edits of her just calling out and just screaming, and it reminded me of Battleship Potemkin, also like Mother, the Soviet era film.
Yeah.
Is that Potemkin or
I don't. I don't know if I've seen.
Yeah.
Which one is that?
Yeah, that's the one where I guess the mother.
The mother.
Yeah, where it was a film about a son joining the communist like rebellion against the SARS. So yeah, it just reminded me of those films as well. Like in Battleship Potemkin, when like the mother's crying over the baby going down the stairs and stuff like that, and just the close-ups of those images are it reminded me.
Yeah.
Also, like the big debate and like aspect of it is its links to Indian mythology, and those are really obvious to see because Nargis's character is called Radha, who is Krishna Bhagwan's like love interest. So like that's really obvious, and a lot of film critics and academics point out that she kind of takes on the role, like the different roles in the film are related to goddesses like Sita, Savitri, Draupadi, Dharti Mata, Lakshmi, and each of these goddesses represent like purity, wealth, the ground, like the earth, and just like staying next to your husband, like supporting your family, all these aspects of like Hindu mythology, like creeping into to like Indian popular cinema is like very like telling of how Mother India as a film influenced films coming after it. One of another like interesting quotes I read was from Vijay Mishra in his book Bollywood Cinema, Temples of Desire. He says that Radha represents goddesses as a single mother, wife, and lover. However, at the end of the film, she kind of takes on this role of Shiv, the destroyer, and Vishnu, the preserver. So the destroyer aspect comes from the fact that she has to kill Sunil Dutt's character, who becomes a dacoit, and at the end of the film, and she actually like shoots him, and it's that image alone shows like the destructive power that she holds. And in terms of Vishnu the preserver, she is sort of the woman in the film that keeps the village together, because there's a flood that takes place during the movie, and she's the one person who like gets all of the farmers together and says, hey, we should stay here and like actually work the land to our benefit. And so yeah, there's a lot of like aspects to it. One final aspect of discussion, I guess, would be the changing role of women in society, because like I just mentioned, she goes from being like a mother in a family, providing for her husband and her children. She then has to take on the like traditionally masculine aspect of being the breadwinner, and like also have to like being the mother because she has to feed her kids, so and she has to take care of her house. So it is.
And there's always like struggles upon struggles that are bestowed upon her.
Pretty much.
And how she perseveres through it all.
Yeah, exactly. It's like it is that. Again, I mentioned this like 5 times now, but this film is about a post-colonial India, kind of figuring out who they are as people. And like you mentioned, so many things happens to India after like the British leave partition. There's a lot of like
industrialization.
There's industrialization, but also like problems relating to poverty, inequalities in terms of like caste and um, gender and
Ethnic,
ethnicity.
religion.
Yeah, religion, and yet that perseverance of India is what the film is about. Like, yeah, we can go through all of this, but we can come out strong.
Yeah, I think and the golden age of Indian cinema was that. It was showcasing why what India was trying to be, trying to grapple with its identity, but knowing that it'll persevere. It holds on to its values.
Yeah, very much.
Yeah.
I think Mother India really this was like the first time I watched it. I'd seen like parts of it, and there's so much about there's so many parallels to be made between those films and like the movies from the 90s, which I grew up on.
Yeah.
Especially relating to Nargis's character, Radha's role as a woman in society. She's looked upon as oh yeah, she's she starts off being this shy bride, but then at the end of the film she is the person in the village everyone looks up to. The first scene in the movie, a caravan of people show up to her place asking that, oh, we need to open this dam and we can't do it without you. So, and she's very hesitant because she knows what she's had to pay for it. But it still shows oh, women are the highest people we need to look up to. And there's debate about that aspect of it in India society. So, but at the same time, it's it's the most important aspect of the film is what does a woman's role in a newly founded India is.
Yeah.
Knowledge actually plays a huge part in Mother India, especially the second half, because a lot of the characters there are poor farmers and they kind of stop schooling for the longest time because they have to concentrate on getting money, so a lot of the kids are illiterate. So there's a sequence where so yeah, the little context is that Nargis's character, her family is put in a lot of debt by the moneylender of the village, and later on in the film, Sunil Dutt's character Birju, he confronts the moneylender, and the moneylender brings him the journal of all the transactions and all of the financial statements, and Birju struggles to read it because he can't do it at all. He doesn't understand it. He asks the villagers for help, saying, hey, does it say that our debt is paid, blah blah blah. And they're we can't tell, we don't know either. If we did, we wouldn't be here. So that, and then it's the next scene, it's him joining a class of second graders and first graders learning the Hindi alphabet, ka, kha, ga. Actually they're learning the e, and Birju's character is really struggling. It kind of is played as a comedy, but it's really sad to see it because you're man, he really wants to get rid of this debt that his mom has on her head and his entire family has. So this quest for knowledge and education is a huge aspect of the film. And
speaking of education, this Shree Charsobi, so Raj Kapoor's character actually has a degree in the film, and Nargis finds out, Vidya finds out, and she's why are you dressed like a homeless guy? You're educated. Why are you like that? And he's it's this what I'm wearing, it's just a mask, I need to. He's I understand I'm educated, but I don't want to give up my values or anything. I need to stay true to who I am, even though I have a degree. And he's you're so quick to judge me because I'm dressed like this. But I'm actually very smart. Like I
Yeah.
know, and I think I basically was trying to say like, yeah, you have all these poor people. That doesn't mean they're not smart or they're not of value. Like,
Of course.
so I really like Raj Kapoor's work, and it's very nice. Like, I really like the themes he brings out in his films. So
Yeah.
but education is a very big theme in all of these. So.
And if you think about it, like, I forget the number or like the statistic, but when India got independence, the literacy rate was huge, and so showing films where education is put on like a high pedestal or like a huge aspect of like moving upwards in society, or like just it's pretty important. So, and I can understand like where the drive comes from to make films with scenes like this, and also like why it resonated with the audience at the time.
Mother India is it's a landmark film of the era, and really showcases how India is grappling with its identity at the time. And I think this sort of went into the 60s as well with more films. But then, which will be our second episode, more so when the global recession hit in the 70s. And people started losing faith in the socialist policies of the Nehru administration. There was economic stagnation, state inefficiency. So what was going to happen to India, and how did Hindi cinema change that? So that will be our next episode. So hopefully you like this one, and stay tuned for the next one. It's a pretty interesting story. But if you had any comments, thoughts for us, please send us an email at pkp.podcast@gmail.com. We're also on Instagram. I think our handle is PKP Podcast or .podcast. PKP .podcast on Instagram. And we're monthly on SoundCloud and Google Play Music now.
Yes.
So that's exciting. Again, thank you for listening, and enjoy the rest of your day. All right.
See you guys.